He says a word or two, and now he's been tossed from the game. Well, Delmon just threw his bat, and the bat hit the umpire.
Hailed as the LeBron James of baseball, Delmon Young became infamous for his explosive temper. From fighting with the umpire to aggravated assault, his troubles became never-ending. Before we dive in any further, please subscribe to the channel. Young's poor choices, poorer consequences. There was one major issue with Young, and it wasn't his skill, it was his temper. In addition to his inconsistent plate discipline in AAA, Young found himself in hot water for an incident. During a heated moment, he chest bumped an umpire, which led to a suspension. Although it didn't last long, the suspension highlighted his growing reputation for letting his temper get the best of him. This was just another example of how his emotional outbursts were starting to overshadow his actual talent on the field. For all the talent he had, he struggled to control his emotions. That side of him really started to come out at the end of 2005, when the Rays decided not to promote him after the minor league season wrapped up. Young felt he deserved to move up, and when they sent him to the AAA for the start of the 2006 season, he made sure everyone knew how unhappy he was. His frustration was loud and clear, setting the stage for bigger issues to come. On April 26, 2006, things took a serious turn for Young while he was playing for the Durham Bulls in a game against the Pawtucket Red Sox. It all started when Young was called out on a third strike. Frustrated, he argued the call and then stood there staring down the umpire, refusing to leave the batter's box. Tensions were already high, but as Young walked back to the dugout, he suddenly turned and tossed his bat underhand toward the umpire. The bat flipped end over end and hit the umpire on the chest and arm. Thankfully, the umpire wasn't seriously hurt, but it was a shocking moment for everyone watching. The very next day, Young issued an apology through his agent. He claimed he didn't mean for the bat to actually hit the umpire, but he knew throwing it at all was completely out of line. The league didn't take the incident lightly. The International League handed Young a hefty 50-game suspension without pay. Though he could have appealed the decision, Young chose not to. His suspension lasted until June 19, 2006. Young's talent on the field was often overshadowed by his anger issues and troubling behavior off it. His temper wasn't just limited to his on-field outbursts. Over time, it became clear that his anger ran deeper. There were also disturbing reports about Young's racist views, which only added to his negative reputation. He became known not only for his emotional volatility, but for holding views that alienated teammates and fans alike. Despite the immense promise he once had, Young's inability to control his temper and his toxic attitude pushed him further away from the success he could have achieved. His mother's loss brought drastic changes in him. Young had always been incredibly close to his mother, Bonnie, who was the one person he trusted without question. Larry, Young's father, also loved him deeply, but he sensed that Young found it difficult to discuss emotional topics with him. Whenever he and Bonnie would talk about personal or emotional matters, Larry felt it was best for him to step aside. He talked to her about all emotional stuff, Larry recalls. He would only talk to me about baseball, but he opened up to her about girls and everything else, those more vulnerable things. In late December 2008, Bonnie began to feel unwell. Doctors initially treated her for what they thought was a bladder infection, but the treatment didn't help. By January 23, 2009, Bonnie underwent an endoscopic ultrasonography, which revealed a tumor in her pancreas. Following a thorough examination at UCLA in early February, doctors scheduled surgery for her on February 11th. Young had to leave for spring training just a week after her surgery and didn't see his mother again until May. When Young finally saw her, he lay beside her, covering his face with his hands and crying. Bonnie passed away in their Camarillo home just a few days later, on May 18, 2009. The night after her funeral, Young had to fly back to join his team, barely giving himself time to grieve. He didn't have a chance to process everything, Larry says. After her death, Young underwent noticeable changes. He gained weight, started drinking, and was less focused on his game. His friends and trainers grew increasingly concerned. He was pretty close to the edge of what he could handle, Elliott explains. All those emotions and stresses were building up, and eventually they started to come out. The physical toll soon followed. Young's old ankle injuries from high school began to flare up repeatedly. During training sessions at P3, Elliott and his team had to carefully and tightly tape his ankles, as Young struggled with limited range of motion. There was really no ankle range of motion. The combination of his emotional and physical struggles made it difficult for him to stay at his best.
Detroit Tiger Delmon Young was arrested for assault Friday outside the Hilton Hotel, hours before his team was supposed to play the Yankees.
As time went on, Young's emotional issues only seemed to escalate. What started as occasional outbursts turned into a pattern of behavior that became harder to ignore, whether it was arguments with umpires, confrontations with teammates, or his inability to control his emotions during games. His temper kept getting worse. Young's aggravated assault incident in New York was a shocking moment that highlighted the depth of his personal issues. After leaving a bar intoxicated, Young encountered a homeless man wearing a yarmulke who simply asked for spare change. Instead of brushing it off or helping, Young lashed out violently, attacking the man while spewing hateful anti-Semitic slurs. His repeated screams of "fucking Jews" left bystanders horrified. As the attack unfolded, another man tried to intervene, hoping to calm things down, but Young, fueled by anger and alcohol, knocked him to the ground. The situation escalated quickly, leading to Young's arrest by the New York police for aggravated harassment and assault. He was charged with a hate crime, adding even more gravity to the situation. The violent nature of the attack and the hate-filled language made it a deeply disturbing event. Despite being a professional athlete with a spotlight on him, Young's inability to control his rage and prejudices led to this serious incident, leaving his reputation even more damaged. Later that same day, Young issued a public apology for his actions, expressing regret over the incident. Despite his apology, the consequences were already in motion. Young was released from custody on $5,000 bail, but the Detroit Tigers immediately placed him on the restricted list while awaiting further action from Major League Baseball. MLB responded swiftly, suspending Young for 7 games without pay, effective from Friday, April 27th. In addition to the suspension, the league ordered him to undergo counseling as part of his punishment. The incident wasn't just about the suspension, though. It had lasting legal repercussions. On November 7, 2012, Young pleaded guilty to aggravated harassment for his role in the attack. As part of his sentence, he was required to complete 10 days of community service and attend a tolerance program at the Museum of Tolerance, aimed at educating him on the harm caused by hate and prejudice. The racist in him showed up again. In another troubling incident, Young found himself in serious legal trouble after a confrontation at a Miami hotel. According to a police report obtained by USA Today Sports, Young, who was 30 at the time, faces a felony battery charge following an altercation with a hotel worker. The incident occurred at the Viceroy Miami Hotel. Young, who had been trying to get access to a club that had already closed, got into a heated argument with a valet attendant who refused to let him onto an elevator leading to the club. Young reportedly used inappropriate and offensive language, calling the attendant a "stupid Cuban." After walking away briefly, Young returned and escalated the situation further. According to the police report, he threatened, "I'm gonna kill you, you Latin piece of shit," before grabbing the attendant by the neck and choking him for about 5 to 6 seconds. The attendant managed to break free, and the police were called to the scene. Miami police responded to the incident and later found Young at his nearby condo. When officers arrived, Young was found naked from the waist down and appeared unsteady on his feet with slurred speech. He was asked to get dressed and provide identification. Initially, Young claimed he knew nothing about the incident. However, after being informed that surveillance footage and eyewitnesses had identified him, he became belligerent. According to the report, Young confronted the officers saying, "I'll slap you in the face with money, you stupid Cuban." Young was charged with felony battery for the incident. The Detroit Tigers, his team at the time, were forced to take action. He was put on the restricted list, and Major League Baseball handed him a suspension. The legal fallout from the incident included a formal apology from Young and legal proceedings that further tarnished his reputation. Beyond the immediate legal and professional consequences, Young's personal life continued to suffer. He struggled with weight gain, substance abuse, and emotional issues, which were compounded by the high-profile nature of his legal troubles.
Postseason, Delmon Young, 280 hitter, 8 homers, 15 runs batted in.
Young grew up in Camarillo, about an hour north of Los Angeles, in a household shaped by discipline and high expectations. His father, Larry, was a former U.S. Navy pilot who had flown fighter jets during the Vietnam War. After his military service, Larry became a commercial pilot, but his military mindset never left him, especially when it came to training his sons. Young's mother, Bonnie, worked as a special needs teacher at a local elementary school, providing a more nurturing presence in contrast to Larry's tough love approach. Larry was relentless when it came to baseball training for his sons, especially Delmon. He set up a batting cage in their backyard and demanded that Young take hundreds of swings each day, no matter the weather. Rain or shine, there were no excuses. Even when Young was tired or wanted to quit, Larry pushed him harder. He treated Young with the same tough discipline that he had learned in the military, much like a drill sergeant would treat his recruits. Larry's approach wasn't just about pushing Young physically, it was about keeping him grounded. If Young ever started feeling confident or proud of himself, Larry was quick to bring him back down to earth, reminding him there was always more to learn and more to achieve. This tough love wasn't new to the family. Young's older brother Dimitri had gone through the same rigorous training and had been the number 4 overall pick in the 1991 MLB draft. The strict regimen became known within the family as Camp Larry, a nickname that captured the intensity and discipline that Larry demanded from his sons, preparing them both for the grueling world of professional baseball. The hard work paid off. Young graduated from Adolfo Camarillo High School in 2003. Right after graduation, he was drafted as the first overall pick in the 2003 Major League Baseball draft, a testament to his immense talent and potential. In 2005, Young showcased his abilities in Double-A while playing for the Montgomery Biscuits. He hit an impressive .236, blasted 20 home runs, and drove in 71 runs, all while maintaining a stellar OPS of .968 in just 84 games. Despite only playing in about 60% of the season's games, his performance was so dominant that he was named the Southern League's most valuable player. On July 15, 2005, Young was promoted to the AAA Durham Bulls, where he continued to prove his worth, batting .285 with 6 home runs and 28 RBI over the course of 52 games. His performance earned him the prestigious honor of being named Baseball America's Minor League Player of the Year, and he was ranked as the #1 overall prospect for the 2006 season. By the end of his minor league career, Young had built an impressive resume, finishing with a remarkable .318 batting average. His success in the minors set high expectations as he prepared to make his mark at the major league level. The rise of Young. On August 28, 2006, Young got the call he'd been waiting for. The Tampa Bay Devil Rays were bringing him up to the majors after Johnny Gomes needed season-ending surgery. The next day, on August 29th, Young made his major league debut against the Chicago White Sox, coincidentally, exactly 10 years after his older brother Dimitri played in his first MLB game. In his 30 games with the Devil Rays that season, he batted .317 with 3 home runs and 10 RBIs. The following year, as a 21-year-old rookie in 2007, Young played all 162 games, hitting .288 with 13 home runs and 93 RBIs. In 2008, Young played 152 games for the Twins, hitting .290 with 10 home runs and 69 RBIs. Though he struggled early in 2009, he had a strong finish in September, ending the season with 12 home runs, 60 RBIs, and a .284 batting average. The 2010 season was a turning point for Young. After shedding 35 pounds in the offseason, he became the Twins' starting left fielder and had his best offensive season yet. In 2011, Young's performance dipped a bit as he batted .266 with 4 home runs and 32 RBIs over 84 games. On August 15, 2011, Young was traded to the Detroit Tigers. In the 2011 playoffs, Young continued to shine, hitting a home run in his first postseason at-bat as a Tiger. He had several key hits, including a game-winning homer in Game 3 of the ALDS against the Yankees. Young's postseason success carried into 2012, where he was named MVP of the ALCS after batting .353 with 2 home runs and 6 RBIs in a sweep of the Yankees. He also hit .357 in the World Series, though the Tigers were swept by the Giants. After the 2012 season, Young became a free agent and signed a 1-year deal with the Phillies in January 2013. The contract included incentives for performance and weight loss, despite starting the season on the disabled list due to ankle surgery. In 2014, Young signed a minor league deal with the Baltimore Orioles and earned a spot on their opening day roster. He batted .302 with 7 home runs and 30 RBIs, excelling as a pinch hitter. Young re-signed with the Orioles on a 1-year deal for the 2015 season, but was designated for assignment in July and released shortly after, ending his time with the team. Since then, he has been on a roller coaster ride, switching through teams. On October 10, 2017, Young signed with the Melbourne Aces of the Australian Baseball League, hoping to revive his MLB career. In 2018, he joined Acereros de Monclova in the Mexican League but was released in April. By June, he signed with the Pericos de Puebla. That winter, Young played for Navegantes del Magallanes in Venezuela, becoming the first Magallanes player to win league MVP, hitting .294 with 19 home runs. He returned to the Melbourne Aces for the 2019-20 and 2020-21 seasons. That is it for this one, but if you happen to like MLB legends, Make sure to check out our latest videos on our channel Baseball Icons. I'm sure you will love it. Oh, and while you are at it, drop a comment telling us who to cover next, and don't forget to subscribe.